All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. My name is Emily Roller. I am the Assistant Director of Student Programming at Sci-City. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the Yale Innovators Prize. So this prize is kind of an interesting one. The official description is that it is a $25,000 cash prize awarded to the for-profit or nonprofit venture or project that has the potential to produce the most creative or impactful solution to real-world problems that doesn't qualify for any other Startup Yale prize. So we can break that down a little bit. Basically what this means is you're going to notice, and you've probably already noticed if you've been here for a little while, we have a really wide variety of ventures that come through Sci-City. Today I believe we have 8 different prizes that are going, but they don't encapsulate everything that's happening on the Yale's campus and in this student ecosystem. And so this prize was really designed to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, right? And so it's a really interesting one. It's a challenging one to figure out, like, how do you even find judges for it, right? Because we have to think about the wide variety of possibilities that we haven't thought about with all of the other prizes, which is such an interesting challenge. But I'm so pleased with both the finalists that we've selected, as well as this incredible panel of judges who I'm getting ready to introduce in just a moment. And just a little bit of perspective, this prize had more than 160 entries. Yeah, it's a lot. And we had a whole bunch of reviewers help us narrow the field. Our judges helped us select the 3 ventures that you're going to see today. So truly, ventures presenting, this is already a huge achievement for you to be here. And you know, regardless of the outcome of this, and I always try to say this, the 3 teams you're seeing are really actively developing their ventures, right? And if audience members, I mean, you all probably know, launching a venture is not a solo act. And so anybody in here, as you meet teams, as you learn about teams, please, I encourage you to engage with them, talk with them, write these conversations and the connections that people can make as a result of putting their work out there, putting their ideas out there. That can be as valuable as any amount of prize, a lot of times much more valuable. So judges, thank you so much for giving your time for this. Audience members, thank you so much for being here. Let's see. Let me just kind of jump in and introduce our judges. So we have a great group. I'll just start on the far side and I'll come in. Deniz Bazar is the coordinator of MPS User Experience Design and MS Information Science programs and serves as an associate professor of industrial design at the University of New Haven. With over 2 decades of experience, she specializes in human-centered design and UX and has led academic programs and industry collaborations that integrate design thinking, research, and education to prepare the next generation of design leaders. Bethany Park is Global Managing Director of Policy, Advisory, and Strategy at Innovations for Poverty Action, IPA, where she leads efforts to bridge the gap between research evidence and action at scale. She oversees IPA's global network of embedded evidence labs and leads efforts to help governments and organizations use data and evaluation to drive better decisions with a focus on scaling impact through partnerships and emerging tools like AI. Next, we have Dr. Norma Padron. Dr. Padron is a portfolio manager within JP Morgan's Commercial and Investment Bank in the Innovation Economy team, partnering with founders and investors of early-stage deep science and emerging technology companies to accelerate growth. Previously, she founded a Techstars-backed startup and has led work across digital health, data science, and venture development, bringing a rare combination of academic rigor and hands-on experience to supporting founders building impactful science and technology ventures. I know this is a very impressive group that we've assembled today. Next, we have Cheryl Heller, PhD, is a designer, artist, business strategist, and educator. Through her agency, Commonwise, she works with global organizations to build creative capacity and explore how design can drive human health and impact, while also pioneering social design through groundbreaking academic programs and initiatives that she started and led. And finally, we have Jamal Robinson. Jamal is the Director of Sales and Marketing at New England Brewing Co. With over 20 years in the brewing industry, he has led sales growth for major breweries while also championing diversity through scholarships and nonprofit initiatives that expand access and representation in the beverage industry. So please give our fantastic panel judges a round of applause. Let's see, any other things that we need to say? Just a little bit about how this is going to work. Each team is going to have 5 minutes to pitch. Cal is the timekeeper. He has a little sign that'll say when you have 1 minute left. He'll give you a little wrap it up signal whenever it's time to wrap it up. So just be sure that you're paying attention to him. Judges will then have 10 minutes to ask questions. Everybody, we have to use these mics even though they're not doing anything, or they appear to not be doing anything, because this is being recorded. And so just be sure that you have it and that you actually have it in front of your face. I've already messed that up while I'm up here. It's hard to remember, but try to. And also when we're asking questions, and the judges will try to make sure that we pass you a mic so that those questions can also be recorded. Okay, I think that's it for right now. We are going to welcome our first team. So our first team is Pyari. Pyari is a Nepal-based global health venture improving adolescent sexual and reproductive health outcomes through culturally grounded, age-appropriate sexual and reproductive health education. Please welcome them to the stage.
Do we have 2 mics per chance, or should we?
Have 2 mics. Here you are.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, so it doesn't work, right?
Okay.
Or, okay.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to pretend to hear myself project. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nikita Borel. I'm a second-year MPP student at Yale's Jackson School.
I am Priyanshu Pokhral. I'm a senior at Wesleyan University.
And we are co-founders of Pyari Education. Across South Asia, 1 in 8 children report sexual abuse before the age of 18. And in Nepal specifically, millions of teenagers navigate puberty, relationships, and safety without trusted guidance. And that's exactly why we are building Nepal's first adolescent health education platform that takes our curriculum that's already tested in local classrooms.
Adolescents in Nepal are being failed in 2 major ways: ignorance before the harm is done and isolation after. Only 6% of students report having good sex ed in schools, and over 80% do not know where to get help after the harm is done. So Pyari is addressing this through 2 connected pathways: a digital learning platform that empowers the students through knowledge given early, and with a built-in Get Support tool that directs them to help after when they need it. So this digital tool is an extension of the work that we have already been doing across classrooms in Nepal. We have reached over 2,200 students across 6 districts with our co-educational curriculum built with partnerships across 40 institutions. And we have also garnered over 100 million views on social media, and this gives us the true evidence we need to move on to the next phase, which is digital expansion. And so with the digital platform, we are hoping to reach the rest of Nepal with our evidence-based and culturally aligned curriculum. For many teenagers in Nepal, the internet is already their first classroom, and we can see this as 95% of students have internet and device access, and 71% of them actually search for sexuality education online.
So we surveyed and interviewed over 80 teenagers to actually ask them, what do you want on this platform? So 63% of them said to make it real and relatable learning, so Pyari built it from there. We have an average rating of 4.9 from our prototype testers, adolescents. And so we are completely reimagining how you view adolescent health education by making it age-appropriate, practical, and fun. Think of it like Duolingo for sex ed, and less like the awkward health classes that you had to take in school. And so we take our students through 5-minute learning modules, scenario-based learning, badges, streaks, games, and so much more. But we do know that learning alone is not enough to protect students if they don't know where to access help when they need it. And that's why we built a Get Support pathway. So when a student learns about a topic, we teach them to recognize related risks, and if they need help, they can press the Get Support button and be connected to government vetted and provided sexual reproductive health services.
We envision 3 revenue channels for this platform through platform licensing across schools and colleges and institutions. We hope to reach 100 middle and high schools, 25 colleges, and 8 institutions, and generate over $250,000 in yearly revenue by year 3. This is also a figure representative of the 117,000 students we hope to reach through our digital expansion across these platforms to eventually serve the 3.1 million students across Nepal. These projections are based off of the current work that we already do in Nepal, and so we are not entering this market cold. We already operate inside of it. So we started off as finalists in Startup Yale in 2024, and since then we have already built an education model that we deploy in person. And in 2026, after raising about $60,000 in funding, we built a digital MVP and validated it. And now with Yale Innovation Prize, we hope to take it further and deploy it across 20 schools and colleges in 2027. And by 2028, we want to be able to expand it not just in Nepal, but across the larger South Asian region.
And none of this would be possible without our amazing full-time team that's working in Nepal to implement our proprietary curriculum in classrooms. And we're also connected with over 100+ network of volunteers to work across schools, NGOs, and institutions to implement the knowledge that students need to protect themselves. And ultimately, we hope to use this $25K to completely launch the trajectory of our platform from just a digital MVP to a scalable digital platform. So $6K will be used to build this Get Support pathway through privacy and safeguarding protocols. $7K will be used to build a full-time team to build the pilot. $8K will be used towards expanding our digital curriculum, and $4K will be used for replicating readiness with outreach and marketing. And overall, most importantly, it will help us reach the 117,000 boys and girls who deserve reproductive health education that is preventative and actionable. As a survivor myself, I was left in the dark, and I hope that every single child has a resource like this in their pocket to protect themselves from all forms of violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation and for taking on this important challenge. I'm going to ask 2 questions at once. In your testing, which aspects of from adoption to compliance, and I don't know how long the program is, to behavior change have you tested? Can you talk about the partnerships, the support partnerships? I'll stop there because that's complicated.
You want to take the first?
Yeah. So we have done like 2 phases of.
Sorry.
We've done 2 phases of like feedback that we've received from students. First for our educational model, and then we did like an adoption research survey for our digital model. So for our in-person education model, we have amazing results. As you can see, we have 95% students recommending these programs to other students, 97% finding this material helpful in their regular life, and then also like the activities that we employ, the fun activities that we talk about, finding them helpful, and 96% of the students actually feeling more comfortable talking about these topics. So these topics can range anywhere from consent, boundaries, nutrition, body image, self-esteem, anything at all. And the most important thing is that the most important topic that these students found was sexual abuse prevention or bystander intervention that we teach. And so we see that this is having real-time impact in these students' lives through the in-person model, and we just want to scale it in a larger basis through the digital model.
And in terms of for partnerships, we really look at the ecosystem of how students, embody these harms, but also are able to get help. So we've worked with schools. At this point, I think we've worked at across 8 schools. We also partner with local governments, so municipal governments, to make sure that we're actually working with people that are like at the ground level. And then we also, I think a big part of this is that we want to generate demand for this type of education from the ground. So we work with local actors like the Rotary Club or like the Nepal Red Cross, for example, who really help us make this culturally appropriate.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for, as was said, for taking on this important topic. And maybe just to follow up on the question about behavior change, do you have any plans for sort of, taking this as you scale it up, measuring what students are, it looks like we have great data on sort of attitude change. Are you thinking about measuring changes in knowledge or how people are actually actioning this in their lives and sort of what they're doing with the information? And then perhaps relatedly, you mentioned that this is an evidence-based curriculum, and so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the evidence base as you understand it for the work you've done.
Yeah, so in terms of let's start with the evidence base first, if that's okay. Do you want to switch it to the slide? So we actually use UNESCO's technical guidance on comprehensive sexuality education to build our curriculum, and we mostly cover these three main topics, or we tier them in such way because we do want to make sure that we're able to reach students as early as possible, because it does show that it's easier to make this learning stick better, let's say, if they are not already shrouded in the stigma that comes around these topics. So really we've worked with pedagogy experts around sexuality education to make sure that it's evidence-based, but also culturally and age-appropriate. I think that's one that a lot of people usually miss.
We've also worked with doctors who have vetted our curriculum, so we actually spent over a year just generating the curriculum and researching and developing it. We generated around 7,000 pages of research. We employed around 25 research fellows across the globe, so some students from Yale also worked for us to develop the curriculum. And so I think we've vetted this as much as we can because we understand the importance of how sensitive this topic is, and we want to give the best quality of education, because it's not that sex ed doesn't exist already, but the quality of what's being provided is not good enough, and we want to provide that quality.
And then for your first question, I think it really requires us to take that extra step for monitoring and evaluation. So the first time we visit the school is not enough. We have to visit 6 months out, a year out, to see actually what the behavior change is like. So we actually just wrapped up a 3-month program at a government school in the outskirts of Kathmandu, and we were able to basically measure their pre and post assessments in terms of their attitudes, but we're hoping to go back to that school in about 3 to 6 months to see if there's actually been any behavior change. And we've also done needs assessments before we go into the school, so we understand that what the initial stage is like before we go in, and that we can compare that to the results of after we went in and see how that goes as time goes on. Maybe you guys can just keep that.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for your presentation. Your pilot studies are made in facilitated environments like schools. How do you anticipate individual use, or how do you anticipate young users engage with your product individually?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because that is why our business model is built to go through schools and institutions rather than individual access first, because we want to be able to supervise this learning through the channel of the schools. And so that's why we partner directly with the schools and design, even in the digital platform, design a specific curriculum for that specific school, which is less work than what we do already, in terms of going in person, but then this allows some form of higher supervision and overarching support that the school can provide, instead of just directly letting young individuals use it.
And this includes personalized dashboards and also Thank you. This includes personalized dashboards, as well as being able to look at who's using the reporting mechanism, so that way we can actually see, are people using this support and what are the services that they're most being connected to.
The issue that you're taking on is prevalent around the world, unfortunately.
Yes.
And a lot of people have made serious efforts to address this. Have you I'm sure you've audited them.
Yes.
What have you learned from what others have done and failed at, and where they've failed?
Yeah, so I think my grounding at the Jackson Public Policy School really helps me in terms of seeing how, things go from really great big ideas to what they actually look like in implementation. And it's never in the granular level that we need it to be culturally supportive for these students. So a lot of times we get these really great guidances from UNESCO, but they aren't really applicable to Nepal's audience. And so the kids are just reading it and they're not actually absorbing and enacting that education. So that's why we really work to make sure that we, for example, before we go into any school, we do a needs assessment. So so we already have a baseline curriculum, but let's see how we can tailor it to that specific area. So then we do a needs assessment to see, is there low iron in the school perhaps? A lot of times the school nurses can tell us that. Or is there a lot of behavioral issues between boys and girls? The principal will be able to tell us that. So we really understand the ecosystem around the student to be able to tailor a curriculum that's based for that space. And then we're able to build really great relationships with the students because we use really fun learning. So like we do games, we do we just try to make it fun because when it's fun, you remember it. And then you're not learning for someone else. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I think the bigger issue is also pedagogy in general, because that points to what you're saying of this is a larger issue around the globe, and we see that again, Nepal has a great content on sex ed in their health books, but when you go and talk to the kids about can you define what this is, they do not know what it is. And usually the health teachers aren't they removed direct appointments for health teachers, so then it's the math teacher going and teaching health class, or I guess PE teachers teach health class sometimes in the US. And so that's just it's not the most robust way of teaching sex ed, because it needs a lot of care, and it's not just material that you can just read off and teach. We need to understand the students. So we do focus a lot on pedagogy as well.
Yes. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, very well done. Yeah, that's great. Next up, we have a team building a web platform where researchers rapidly share negative and orphan experimental results in citable, searchable format, helping avoid dead ends, accelerate discovery, and give the researchers credit for all of their work. Please welcome Parallax.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mara. I'm a PhD student in microbiology department here at Yale.
And I'm Ananya. I'm currently a senior studying applied math and machine learning in Yale College. And we are building Parallax, or version control for experimental science. So the engineering community has plenty of tools that enable collaboration, version control. If I, solve a bug, somebody doesn't have to start from ground zero trying to reproduce all that I did and try to resolve it from the beginning. GitHub, GitLab, Stack Overflow, all these amazing tools out there enable software to compound over time because the knowledge infrastructure compounds. And this is why software is so scalable. But unfortunately, experimental science is not. Science has never had an equivalent system. Right now, all of the data, methods, and results that people get are locked away in siloed lab notebook entries, hard drives, disconnected spreadsheets, and there is just no shared database that captures experimental work as it happens. And this is no small inefficiency, with researchers having to redo all their work and institutions spending billions of dollars on wasted experiments and wasted labor. The US spent almost $1 trillion on R&D last year, with tons of experimental knowledge never even seeing the light of day, only 50 to 70% of results not getting published. So we have this global $1 trillion research ecosystem with absolutely no infrastructure for its data. And software has GitHub, data has Snowflake, but science has nothing.
But what if things could be different? Imagine a world where experimental science also had a research where people could share, discover, and build upon the research datasets. That's where we're building Parallax. Parallax at its core is very simple. It is a website where researchers can upload the results of their experiments, and other researchers can discover and build upon this shared knowledge directly in a way that's much faster than what we have right now. And the unique security features of Parallax also allow it to be suitable for all stages of research. I mean, from the very early, when a researcher is testing a new hypothesis and the data is still very raw, you can set it to a low security level where it can be kept pretty much private, to a lab setting where researchers can collaborate inside the small group and they can keep their stuff secret from collaborators. However, within the group, the collaboration can happen. They can share results, methods fast. In the institution level, design administrators can have accountability over the communication and collaboration results that happen inside the department or institution. And of course, when the data sets are able to be shared publicly, other researchers across the globe can see them, build upon them, and this way accelerate the data depository. Now, from a researcher perspective, uploading my data to Parallax can be seamless. Parallax enables for data to be shared without worrying about lengthy write-ups or formatting issues. It can be shared in any file format that is suitable for this type of data, and very fast and ready for integration or integration into existing lab notebook features. Similarly, on the other side, when, for example, as a researcher, I'm looking to start a new project and I want to know, has somebody already done that? Have they gotten any sort of results? Parallax is highly searchable. I can search by any kind of parameter that's suitable for the research and discover the data, and again, start building upon something already built. And the data sets themselves on the Parallax website, they're not just file dumps, they're not just one page. They are a knowledge object that are dynamic and shareable. So a few features enable that. First of all, a unique digital object identifier allows the data to be attributed to individual researcher and cited afterwards. And of course, the community features such as discussion board enable engagement and further collaboration. And finally, the fact that the related publications are also displayed places the database into the overall research network.
And the need for a system like this is really a no-brainer. I mean, Parallax does all my work for me as a scientist. All I need to do is do my experiments and press a button without hitting wall after wall in the peer review process. And to just get the tip of the iceberg, that 30% of data that's published, US universities are already spending billions of dollars annually, and there's just so much untapped value with all the stuff in the middle, the methods, the experiments, and we can really mobilize a community here to galvanize against the problems that really, really matter. And the community is already there. We're just monetizing it. We have all these different subscription plans, for personal, team, department that all allow for quick scale up and delivery of these features. And today we already have our pre-alpha version complete. Right now, a scientist can make an accredited user account with their institutional email, upload their data, search for data that can help them. And with the Innovators Prize, we hope to take all of the customer discovery we've done with Anthropic, tech, pharma, and try to really mobilize this and directly put it in the hands of the researchers that can actually use it here at Yale and across the institutional board as well.
So Ananya and I have both contributed years of our academic career to research. So we both experienced this friction, and we both have just the absolute frustration that the wasteful system that we have right now brings to researchers. Parallax can close this gap and advance science forward in a way that's fast and efficient in the moment where we just need it the most. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you can be in this journey with us.
I love this idea so much. I work with many scientists, entrepreneurs as they're developing their ideas and then looking into commercializing and obviously developing product, which is sort of like it's an extra step from developing the science. However, there's sort of like the diversity of the workflows, I think, outside of biotech, like when you're talking to photonics type of technologies or nanotechnology, material science, quantum, which are all the sectors that I covered. And I'm curious how you're hearing from your customer discovery about that adaptability that you can embed into your product for the workflow, right? I think I can see immediately the value. I'm a little bit maybe worried about different scientists, different labs work in different ways. So how flexible is your workflow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that, having worked myself both in wet lab settings and dry lab settings as a biologist, a chemist, a computational scientist, like all of these types of science, of course have different data platforms. In one case, I'm working with model weights. In another, I'm working with, assay results. But in a way, all of this data still needs to be communicated to the public and needs to be published in journals. So all of these, types of methods will all have different file formats, whether it's a hydrogen spectra or whether it's, findings after doing, one particular wet lab study. Like, regardless, I think, of the type of, method of the science, that data still exists and those methods still exist, that experimental procedure. And so we're very flexible to all types of file formats, all types of uploads, but the core concept, I think, is very transferable across science disciplines and is very prominent across the board.
Just a little bit on the practical side as well. Well, I agree to everything that Ananya just said. Where we select different parameters during upload of the data set, one of the parameters that can be selected is the subfield. So if somebody is looking for results just inside their subfield, this will be helpful to filter by.
Is there any concern with like the quality of the data that's uploaded versus like how do you vet what's good and what's not good? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we thought about that a lot. This is why we have a system of only accredited email accounts that will be able to publish the data. So it's not anonymous, it's linked to researcher's identity, meaning if they falsify data or if they upload something that's completely not viable, it will be reflected in their honest position inside the industry.
Have you done the math or the research on how much of that 2.8 billion is an addressable market for you?
So there are many stages in this case how to create the addressable market, because the market itself, we're almost creating a new market here because there's no system that's corresponding to the problem that we're solving. So we're incorporating from several markets that we're drawing upon. So there's the journal subscription market, which is gigantic. But there's also, for example, some issues of the lab notebooks, as well as other interactive features that are used in the laboratories as subscription-based. So combination of that may even go beyond the 2.8, yeah.
Not to mention, there's also the hidden cost of all of these experiments. So if a lab uses parallax and now they're able to see, negative data or failed experiments from other people, hence they're doing, maybe 70% of the amount of experiments they used to. Those costs are significantly saved. There's that sort of untapped market as well that's kind of hard to quantify.
Thank you so much. So I also work with a lot of scientists, but mainly in social science. So maybe incentives are different. But I guess I'm wondering about take up. And so I guess I feel like one of the reasons why we have the system that we have is that people are a little protective of their data and they're not wild about advertising failed results. And so again, maybe that's a social science problem, but I'm not sure. So I'm wondering, how to sort of overcome these problems and also how to motivate people to do sort of like the one thing that isn't maybe their science, which I also find is sometimes hard when you're working with researchers to say, even if it's like a button push, it's hard to get them to actually do it, right?
Sure. I mean, I'll let Mara speak to this too, but also, I mean, we've done a lot of customer discovery on this, and we've spoken to people from, tech companies, like at the forefront of research, wet lab, pharma, and overwhelmingly, there seems to be an appreciation for a software like this, and we are, really taking a lot of that effort out of the process and really outsourcing it, which I think is kind of motivating enough in that sense. Like your work is faster, everything is taken care of, and like there thus far, like from all the people we've polled and spoken to, there does seem to be like a very strong desire for uptake. But I agree that it is challenging to introduce new systems.
I will add on to that by giving a very concrete example and why. There definitely inside exists this push to maybe keep data private, but at the same time, the network will benefit from sharing of results incredibly. Because, for example, as a PhD student, I would start looking for a new project. I don't know if somebody has already completed it or not, and maybe those failed experiments have been completed by 5 different groups and nobody would know. the time and the money it would save research groups if this data was shared is incredible.
Just one more thing to that. If the concern is privacy, also specifically with a reluctance to share, we do really strongly account for that. And like internally as well, a lot of industry groups have like internal data sharing, and we hope to keep those, you know, team accounts, that privacy, that like your data is as public as you want it to be using this platform as well.
I find obviously what you're building incredibly interesting. A couple of things that I didn't hear you say. So are you embedding AI into your workflows? It's probably the first team that I hear pitch that is building something like this that is not talking about AI. So that's one. And then sort of related to that, how are you thinking about the value proposition? So for example, this could be a Jupyter notebook, right? That already exists, and there's a rationale as to why those workflows are open source, and the community really benefits from them, and you can choose to use them or not. Seems here that the value here is sort of what you were mentioning, which is saving time to researchers, advancing the science faster, which has commercial value as well. And it could be value for presentations or, again, I don't know, but it's a utility, so it's something that you charge. And so I kind of want to hear both sides. So how are you making this as intelligent as possible for the end users? And then how are you thinking about the potential commercialization of this as a product that brings value?
Sure.
Yeah, I want to address the first question first. So we did not want to like really ride this AI wave and position ourselves as like the core AI platform. However, we will be utilizing AI, of course, on different stages. It will help with the upload, it will help convert the files, it will help discovery. I think there's a lot of opportunities to implement it, and especially as AI co-scientists come out, it may also be a way to really drive the scientific discovery with its help. However, we also want to be cautious on the side to make sure the privacy is respected if data especially is sensible.
Right now, Anthropic just acquired Coefficient Bio for $400 million, which is an AI co-scientist. And they already have a whole scientific suite of tools integrated into their Claude language model. They're using BioRender, they're using Benchling, they're using a lot of these different science technology, science tools for scientists. And we've already been having some conversations with Anthropic to see if that is something we could do in the future, is integrate that with Claude. And to your second point about product, I think really there's a huge value prop here in that, we're saving scientists time, right, which is commercially viable, it's moving faster. But also, universities and institutions are paying so much to only access like a third of the data. So we're providing that remaining 2/3 of data available to people, which is essentially what they're paying for. And we're also, saving institutions so much money by reducing redundant experiments, wasted labor, materials, all of this additional spending. When I was working at the NIH, the sharps bin, when we were disposing things, would fill up to the brim, like every single hour. And so like thinking about all those materials, those single-use plastics, single-use beakers, totally removing that and like kind of reducing the amount of waste there in experimentation is super, super important. Especially when you're already in an industry where you have to repeat experiments and you have to do things over and over again. It just cuts down on that a lot.
Do you have any concern about bias, either interpretation or uploading of data?
I think that's a really interesting question. In that, I think whoever uses the platform and publishes and puts their data up here is going to reflect probably the existing broader scientific community, and probably like will hopefully be, consistent with like maybe the wide swath of that 30% that is already published. But that being said, I think like the integration of AI features here would also be very valuable, I think, in detecting bias. If we can, prompt our language models as they search through the database and say, we're looking for these specific things, and it outputs specific results. I think looking to those results after, we have like the deployed beta version, and trying to identify signs of bias and how we can fix those bias with like post-training algorithms, as Google has and other search engines have, would be like extremely beneficial, I think, as a later stage add to the product.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, and our final team enhances inclusive math education for blind and visually impaired learners using assistive technology and AI Please welcome Assistive Math.
Assistive math, making math education accessible to the visually impaired. I'm going to start with a short exercise. How many of you growing up have found math difficult growing up? Raise your hand. Well, imagine what that looks like for a student with visual impairments. Meet my friend Zach. Zach is a student who is blind, and he was enthusiastic in mathematics and statistics. However, he had to drop his passion. For Zach to enter into a math classroom, he needs a braille machine and a talking calculator. These two will need up to $1,400 US. And in classroom, he misses out on half of the teacher's presentation. He has to rely on his sighted colleagues for studying and independence. And finally, even when using his laptop, he still has to rely on his sighted colleagues. This isn't a problem for Zach, but for the 1.5 million students with visual impairments, who are 5 times less likely to attend school, which estimates to 411 global productivity loss per annum. And that's why we built Assistive Math together with Zach and other students and teachers with visual impairments. Zach can access affordable talking calculators, engage with the sighted colleagues, and finally, gain independence. And for Zach's teacher, he can prepare content faster from 2 weeks with Braille up to 30 minutes with our platform. He can engage in detailed feedback with the students, and finally, engage all learners. Our solution is designed to scale because we cut across all the curricula and content. Well, how does it work? For the partially blind, we enable magnified content and higher contrast apart from audio support. And for the totally blind, we enable audio feedback and keyboard navigation for them to explore math step by step. We don't just stop at providing a tool for students and teachers. However, we also empower the teachers. How do you teach a person who is blind? So through this training, they're able to create more accessible content, teach math accessibly in real time, and engage all learners. And so far, we've worked with over 120 plus students and teachers in Kenya across 4 schools for the blind. And last year, we were recognized as the top assistive technology innovation in Africa for improving persons with disabilities' life. And we've also worked with impact organizations for the blind and the Ministry of Education in Kenya. Well, what next? We've done a lot of user research, product development, UX research, and market validation in Kenya. But during our UX research, we realized 3 major problems: poor internet connectivity, poor electricity, and finally, a lack of devices. And that's when we saw opportunity in the US market entry. The US market entry shows real user demand with over 1,000 page views on our platform every month, advanced infrastructure, strong institutional demand with student accessibility services, the legal mandates to also drive accessibility through ADA Act, and finally, and the most important one, the potential to cross-subsidize solution. Catch this. For every 40 students and 3 teachers in the US, we can subsidize this solution for 240 students and 14 teachers in Kenya. How does it work? This is our business plan. I'm going to give more details in the Q&A, but I would like you to focus on the startup plan. So for Kenya, our subscription looks like $500 per year. And in the US, it looks like $3,500 per year. So quick math tells you for every 1 school we reach in the US, 6 other schools can be reached in Kenya. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's where the Yale Innovators Prize will be catalytic for us and each and every one of you in this room. With the Yale Innovators Prize, we'll do our first ever pilot in the US. We'll be able to convert these customers into paying customers and accelerate our impact in Kenya. We're also looking for mentorship and feedback, networking and recognition, and strategic resources. Well, our go-to-market strategy will look like working with student accessibility centers. We're already in the early conversations with the Yale Accessibility Center, and then do pilots in these schools, convert them into long-term users, and scale regionally, starting with Yale University, Connecticut Institute for the Blind, and the small school in Boston, Harvard University. What's our impact beyond education? For every $1 invested in assistive technology, there's an estimated $9 return. How so? Because the visually impaired will be more engaged in the workforce participation, which will in turn break the cycle of medically induced poverty that they've been subjected to. Hello everyone, my name is Ron Pile, founder and CEO of Assistive Math, And join with me is a team experienced in assistive technology, education, and persons with lived experience with visual disabilities. And we're not just students, we are backed with advisors with industry experience across assistive technology ventures in Africa, successful founders in assistive tech, directors in Ministry of Education in Kenya, and finally, our very own Yale professor, who has worked in successful edtech ventures in Africa. Well, as I wrap up, I want to end with like one of the quotes, or a few of the quotes from our students. And my best one yet is the second one to the top right. The first time they met assistive math, what hit them was a feeling of hope. Positively, they can easily work out math despite their challenges. So join us in assistive math. We've already done user research, we've done market validation, and now we want to conduct our first ever pilot in the US, and this 25K will be catalytic for us to accelerate our impact. Thank you.
Can you say more about learning outcomes?
Yeah. So far we've worked with 120 students plus, and this has been a continuous iteration of product feedback and product development. But for our first ever pilot we did in 2023, we noticed that there was a 40% improvement in learner engagement among the visually impaired and their performance in classrooms. And as we continue to develop this product, then the more we can get to gauge these metrics as we go on. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about where exactly the product is today? So you mentioned for those that are sort of like there's a spectrum in terms of like visual impairment, right?
Yeah.
And so what is the stage of the product for both, for those that are not fully visually impaired and for those that are?
Yeah, so from this slide deck, so there's the spectrum of being partially blind to being totally blind. So we've already built the features for the partially blind, which is magnified content and high contrast. But at the same time, we still enable the audio support for these students. So even if you're partially blind and your blindness is near to total blindness, you can still rely on audio support to engage with math accessibly. And finally, for the totally blind, then we've already built audio feedback for them. So when a blind user works or uses their own laptops, they already have screen readers installed on them. So they have the audio support already with them. So we make sure when we build the product, it's compatible with their screen readers, and they can use this audio support comfortably. So apart from audio feedback.
And I apologize to interrupt, but is the product then teaching them about, like, for example, differential equations or like algebra, whatever, like what is the product?
Yes. So I want to really distinguish myself as we provide the space to engage with content. We don't yet provide the curriculum to engage with content. So it's a Google Doc for math. You know, you can engage with whatever content you want to have, right? So for the blind users, they'll share questions with their teachers, enable real-time teaching. So traditionally, a math teacher will have to write on a blackboard. Now with assistive math, you can have both students who are blind and sighted in one classroom through the assistive math platform write out the math, which is accessible in real time for the students. Yeah. Questions?
Thank you so much. For the pilot in the US, so what are sort of your learning goals, I guess, for conducting the pilot? What are you hoping to demonstrate or learn as you plan that pilot?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so I've already done some form of user research in the US. I mentioned Zach as my friend here. So I've already seen like, okay, in the US, this is how education is structured. You know, in Kenya, it's a bit different. Like there's a central body of government which controls education. In the US, you have, you know, state governments controlling education, school districts. So much of how we want to go into this pilot understanding, okay, what's going to work for this US education system? How do accessibility centers integrate inclusion into schools? Because the more I've seen my time at Yale with Accessibility Center being very helpful, I've personally been supported by the Accessibility Center at Yale Center. the more I see the need for accessibility to not just be in schools for the blind, but schools like Yale University and Harvard University. So giving these students a chance at these top tier institutions. So yeah, to wrap it up, just understand the education system, know how this works for the blind, not just in accessibility centers, but in real classroom experiences, and finally take off from there.
Thank you for your presentation. I just want to ask how your product is fundamentally different interaction with the existing products in the market.
Yeah. So with the existing product market, we've seen tools with content already out there like Khan Academy. We've also seen tools like Uptake Education, which is an edtech company in Kenya which provides the content already. With our platform, we're giving you the promise to engage with any content that you have. So now it looks like real-time classroom experiences, because what it misses out, what this other solution misses out on is they provide static accessibility, so already existing content, but we provide real-time accessibility. And as we move towards more of real-time accessibility, this is where AI can also come in. Imagine going to Khan Academy. The video is still inaccessible, but through assistive math, the AI is able to analyze the video and break it down into steps that the blind learner can understand and navigate through. So we are not just aiming to be like the main, platform with all the content in math. We actually step aside and say, hey, there's still inaccessibility in all these solutions. So how can we kind of go into the blue ocean strategy and hit at the middle where, there's the most challenge of inaccessibility in any content. Yeah. And just to add on top of it, tools or learning tools always present the tools to the user, to the teachers, but we are also empowering the teachers to understand how are you going to teach a student who is blind. So with that, we're not just, hoping for the best when you give out a tool, but we enable the teachers to be confident, because these teachers have reported to us that, wow, now I feel confident teaching a room, even though I never knew something about accessibility. Now I'm becoming a better teacher. And so with that, we can enable adoption in schools that weren't even supporting the blind before. And through our access network that I mentioned before, Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa has access to over 3,000 learners in Africa, spread around 250 schools. We're working with the Ministry of Education Kenya, so we stand at a very pivotal point in changing policy in regard to accessibility. And yeah, finally, just accelerators that have worked in disabilities. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. One more big round of applause for all of our finalists. Really excellent job.